This is a recorded presentation from our WordPress Meetup for WordPress St-Petersburg at the Suncoast Developers Guild. Please allow me to introduce Travis Lopes for his presentation of Introduction to Gravity Forms Workshop.
So if you have never used it before, Gravity Forms is pretty much the easiest tool out there to create advanced forms for your WordPress websites. I think we're probably, as far as like installs on WordPress websites, we're probably number 2 out of all like the different contact form plugins out there. And we have a wide range of features, which we'll go over a lot of them tonight. It's very easy to use to like quickly get started to build a form to insert on your website. We have various different kinds of fields, ranging from like the simple ones that you would put in just like to collect, or like simple like text fields, email, but then it gets more advanced with like survey fields, quizzes. We even have, for if you're trying to make your site GDPR friendly, we even have a simple consent field that you can insert into your form. Like you can add, you have a like terms and conditions of like what you're agreeing to on it with a checkbox, and it even tracks like if you were to update that form over time and change the message of that consent field, it tracks what consent item that person, when they filled out the form, actually agreed to. There's Conditional Logic, which is a pretty powerful feature that most people don't use, and we'll get into that in a little bit. Email notifications, file uploads, the ability for users to be able to start filling out a form, pause in the middle of it, and then come back later and resume and finish filling it out, which is great for lead conversion sometimes, depending on how long your forms are. You can create posts on your WordPress site with Gravity Forms, and you can integrate with tons of different services out there to collect payments, to push it to your email marketing services, and all kinds of stuff like that. We are a paid contact form plugin. We're not like the other ones that have like a freemium model. These are our prices. The difference between the 3 tiers are how many sites you're able to install and get updates on your websites, and what kind of add-ons you get with the license. Amongst the 3 different tiers, they're broken out. Like the basic tier is mainly like email marketing related add-ons like Mailchimp, ActiveCampaign, stuff like that. For our Pro, our middle tier license, that starts to add in like CRM integrations, integrating with Dropbox to accept files from other people's Dropbox accounts, or uploading files to your own Dropbox account. Slack, Trello, Zapier. And then with the Elite add-ons, which is like our top tier license, is where you can like start integrating with Stripe and PayPal. You can do your polls and quizzes. You can accept signatures on your forms, and you can do our brand new advanced post creation add-on, which goes even further than what we have built in with Gravity Forms, where you can start creating posts on your website with custom post types, custom taxonomies, all that kind of fun stuff. So we'll just go ahead and get right on into it here. Have like a basic WordPress site set up, and we'll go ahead and install a new copy of Gravity Forms. Got the latest version here. Go ahead and install that. Activate it. And then once you get started with Gravity Forms, when you install it for the first time, you're introduced with this pretty simple setup wizard. You just go ahead and put in your license key there, which will allow you to get automatic updates and be able to install the add-ons we have instead of having to go to the website to download them. You can just do one-click installs right from the plugin, and it'll help you with support. You always want to have, when you go through, make sure to keep background updates enabled, just in case there's like an important security fix or something that comes out. You don't have to worry about installing it yourself. It just shows right up there on your website. Select currency. I'm going to go ahead and do the US dollar. Hit next, and then we're done. So here we go. This is the basic forms screen here, which will list out all the forms you have on your website, and we'll go ahead and create one. We'll go ahead and create a basic contact form to start out with. So once you create a new form, you'll be brought to our form editor. And on the right-hand side here, we have our different groupings of fields that are available in Gravity Forms. The standard group here is, I'm going to go ahead and bring that a little larger. The basic ones that you would see on most forms, like the simple single line text, paragraph text fields, drop downs, radio buttons, numbers. There's also an HTML field, like if you just need to insert some HTML into your form. It's like a simple paragraph explaining something. You can do that as well. In the advanced fields, this is where we start to get into some like multi-input style fields, accepting a name, the date, time, address, username and password, uploading files, that kind of stuff is found in there. There's post fields, which when you insert any of these fields into the form, it will create a new WordPress post on the website automatically without having to do much extra configuration. And then there's pricing fields at the bottom for selling products right through a form. And we'll get into that like a little later when we start going into integrations with payment gateway add-ons. But since we're doing a contact form, it's pretty simple here. We'll just grab a name field to collect the person's date. We'll drag that in. We'll add an email field to get their email. We'll also get their phone number. We'll go in here and we'll add a single line text field because we want to ask them like a simple a simple subject field. And then we'll go ahead and add a paragraph text field in and ask them what their message is. And you see like all the fields here, when you highlight over them, it'll show you what the field type is there at the top left. And you can go ahead and just drag and drop these around to change the order of the fields. When you click on the field, it'll pop up the field settings for that field. Under General is where you'll find the basic stuff like setting the field label. What will appear above, you can set a description of just put in what is your name as a description, and that'll appear below the name to describe in further detail what that field is for. On more complex fields like this that have multiple inputs like a first name and last name, you can control which fields will show up. So you could like enable the middle name field, or you could disable the middle and last and just ask for their first name. There's also rules under here for this one. The only rule you can set is required. And by enabling that, they have to fill out that field to be able to submit the form. Under the appearance, you can set stuff like the placeholders, that the text that will appear within the input fields themselves. You can choose where the field label is, so you can have it be visible, or it can be hidden. Personally, we recommend for accessibility reasons that the label is visible. You can choose where the description is placed, the sublabels, which for fields with multiple inputs, where those go, so you can put those above the inputs like that. And you can set custom CSS classes, so if you want to do custom styling for a specific field, you can set a class there, so you're able to target it. And you can also set a custom validation message, so that way if they go to submit the form, there is an error with that specific field, you can change what the error message is for that field instead of it being whatever the generic message is for that field. And then under advanced, you can set what the default values are for that field that will appear when they first view the form. You can control the visibility of the field. You can have it be visible, it can be hidden, or it can be administrative. And with administrative fields, they can't submit anything. Those administrative fields are only visible when you go into the back end and view an entry, and you can edit the values there. You can set the admin field label. So so on the front end, they'll see something like you could change the field label to be what's your name, and that's what they'll see on the website when they go to fill out the form. But we can go in here and change the admin field label to just name. So when you go to export your entries out of Gravity Forms, or when you see them in your notification email that you might have set up by default, or when you go to edit the entry in the back end, you'll see that admin field label instead for something that might make more sense for you. You can also set up a field to be populated dynamically, and we'll go ahead and enable it for this field. I will set the parameters to just first name and last name, and I'll show this in the next step, how to populate those dynamically. And then you can also enable on the field's conditional logic. Conditional logic is a feature you will find all throughout Gravity Forms. Just right here, what the conditional logic is controlling is whether or not the field should be displayed. And you can do that based on the other fields in the form. So you could set up a checkbox. Well, let's do this.
One of my favorite ones is to do it on the submit form, on the button.
Yeah, on the button.
I don't let the submit button actually show until the form is filled out.
But what we'll go ahead and do here is we'll make this a little more of a complex contact form rather than just like a simple one where it just straight up asks like all the questions. So we'll add a drop down in here asking, what are you contacting us about? We'll say have the first one be select a choice to make sure they select one. And we'll just make two choices. I'm contacting you about a project, and the other one will be just something else for anything unrelated to that. So then we'll add in another field below, what are you contacting us about? And we'll ask them what their budget is for the project. But the thing is, having that field on the form, you don't always want that to appear. Because if someone is just contacting you about something else, there's no point in asking them what their budget is for the project. So that is where the conditional logic comes in. So we'll go back over here to advanced, and we'll enable conditional logic. And we'll say, show this field, this what's your budget for this project field, and set it if, only if, on that what are you contacting us about field, they select I'm contacting you about a project. So now that we have that set up, that basic form set up, we'll go ahead and save that, and we'll preview it.
Oh, the original screen looks funky as the projector. It's not. Gravity Forms are gorgeous.
I am the projector.
It's true, man. It's true.
So here we go. This is the basic form preview screen for Gravity Forms. You can access it by clicking the preview button here up in the toolbar when you're editing a form. Or when you're in the forms list here, when you hover over the form, you can click the preview link. And this allows you to see what your form looks like without having to go through the extra steps of embedding it somewhere in a WordPress page and then seeing it there. So here we go. We have this form set up here. So I'll just go ahead and fill it out. First name, last name, email. I'm going to go ahead and skip the phone number. And then when we get to what are you contacting us about and select a choice, if I select something else, it's just going to give us the basic fields. But then if we go ahead and select I'm contacting you about a project, that what's your budget for your project field is going to go ahead and appear now because we set up that conditional logic. And it can be more complex than that. That's just basic, like adding a wrong field.
Do you want to show them an example?
As far as like more complex?
Yeah.
Well, in the sense of it doesn't have.
I mean, just the conditional logic type thing. Go to jimtrue.com/contact. Because I have to kind of like field the questions. I don't want anyone to send anything to me unless I actually want to hear from them. I'm very specific about that because I say it all at the front of my site that says like, I have a question about, pods go through the support channels, go through the support channels. It's like, I'm very specific. When you select, don't come here. I want to engage you for client work.
So this here is actually like an interesting way you can use Gravity Forms because I've seen it on the Easy Digital Download site. So there's initial like support page isn't actually a support form. It's just a Gravity form that is using conditional logic to like basically do like a choose your own adventure path,
right,
where you go through and select what you need help with, and then it presents you with like, hey, click this button to fill out like a support request, or hey, click this button to go view documentation. You're never actually submitting anything with it. But because of the power of Gravity Forms as conditional logic, you can just build out this whole very simple dynamic page very simply.
Well, the nice thing, he was talking about this earlier because I was asking about that, as in why you would want to actually do that, like hide whole sections of your form behind a conditional, is that you can, it's bad, people will actually fill out a form if it's simple, But if they go to a form and it's got 1,700 things, they won't touch it.
Yeah.
So if you can
Especially when you're throwing them questions that are completely unrelated to like what they need.
Yeah.
Yes, Elaine.
What if on your form you say, what is your budget? And you want to say a range, would it be a series of ranges or?
Yeah, so what you could do is
How would you do a range?
So you would set up a drop down with a series of ranges, and then you could add another, you could add a conditional like on the submit button that doesn't, you cannot submit the form depending on the budget you submitted it in, or the range you selected. But let's go, let's go with that. So what we'll go ahead and do is, we'll delete that, what's your budget for the project field. We'll add a new one in here. And we'll do like under 10,000.
There you go. Starts asking for that money.
10,000
to 20,000 and just like 20,001 plus. And we'll go ahead and rehook this up, this conditional logic on this field to only appear when they are contacting us about a project.
Can you add a pop-up when somebody makes a choice and then it, like they click on 10 to 20,000?
Mm-hmm.
Add a pop-up that comes up and says, "Are you sure that's all you want to spend?" You cheap sucker.
Cheap sucker.
You could do that with some JavaScript. Like you could add like a jQuery event, like if some like
Right.
when this select field like a value is selected, depending on the value selected. Like just keeping it simple for now. Like we'll just go ahead and put in first name, last name. We'll say that we're contacting about a project. The budget is under 10,000, and just a message that says hello. Submit the form, and by default, there's a basic confirmation message when they fill out the form that comes set up on every Gravity form that just says, "Thanks for contacting us. We will get in touch with you shortly." And by default, there is a email notification that goes out to the admin of the site that just shows all of the fields that were filled out on the form.
Chaos monkey.
Do the information get stored in the website or?
Yes, so it does. It gets stored in your WordPress website by default, all the form submissions.
Show them where the entries are.
Yeah.
Make that clear.
So when you see up in the toolbar here, there's an item for entries, and this is another thing when you go in the forms list, when you hover, it's a link. So we can go in the entries here, and we'll see a list of all of them, and we can just go in here and view the entry that was just submitted.
One of the nice things that I really like about this is if you go to the bottom, you can actually reply to the person's form from inside WordPress.
Yeah.
I do this all the time for our template WordPress. And it uses your logged in email address as a reply to it.
And there's also for some integrations, like if you're using Help Scout, which is like a help desk management system, and you have a Help Scout conversation that gets created for the form, you can add a note in Gravity Forms, and it'll automatically add it as a note in the Help Scout conversation.
You're kidding.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
I know. I was that great when I came up with the idea.
Okay. All right. I'm definitely going to check that one.
Do you have any options? Which one?
Whichever.
Oh, okay. Do you have any options as how do you output the submissions? Like, could you assemble an Excel spreadsheet from it, or?
So, jumping a little ahead, but like while we're here, there is, when we go in the forms menu here, there's an import-export option. And you can export and import the forms so you could import it or export out of one site and import into another. You can also export entries. So if I go ahead and select that contact form, I'll see all the fields.
Yeah, like if you want to assemble a list of all the submissions.
Yeah.
Well, if you wanted to be really snazzy, you can use the Zapier Gravity Forms integration to write a line to a Google Sheet.
Yes.
And actually, as people submit stuff, you can actually have it automatically add a new row to a spreadsheet.
That would be very.
Yeah, that's what I love about the integration with Gravity Forms.
But out of the box, you can just go to export entries, select the form, you select what fields you want to appear. I'll just go ahead and select all of them. You can
Trying
use
to do an upsell, Travis. That's all.
you can do conditional logic here yet again. So you can export. You can target which entries you want included in this export file. You can optionally set a date range so you could set entries for the past week, the past month, and then go ahead and hit download export file, and that will create a handy CSV file. Which, if we can just like open numbers here.
You actually use numbers?
Yeah. And then you'll see all the form fields there with the entry we just submitted. You had a question?
Okay, so my quick question was, my name is Daniel. Let's say you've got like 150 queries. Okay? And I want to bucket list everybody based on how much money they want to spend. Can you do that with this?
Bucket list in what sense?
Well, 10,000 or less, 10,000 to 20,000, about 21.
You mean you're wanting to do kind of like a CRM, kind of like after the form submission?
After the submission, right.
Yeah, it depends now. What
So
you're using.
anybody that wants to spend 20,000 more goes in this bucket. Everybody wants to spend less
Well,
than
that depends.
10,000
Are you
goes in this
working with
bucket.
a CRM? Or are you working with a customer relationship management system like
Okay,
Salesforce?
Infusionsoft.
Infusionsoft. So there is an Infusionsoft add-on out there. I haven't personally used it, so I can't personally speak for it. But it should work where, and we'll get into this a little later on, like with Mailchimp. It'll be the same principle.
Okay.
Yeah.
But you'll set up like in Mailchimp, you would set up a feed, and that feed is like when someone submits this form, I want to subscribe them to this list and like add these tags to the Mailchimp contact.
And just goes over there and does his thing.
But only if it matches these conditional logic rules. So only add this person to this list, like if they check the checkbox saying add me to the mailing list, or if they selected that their budget is this amount. So it's like that conditional logic works everywhere.
Okay.
Why would you have to do that? Why wouldn't you just put in conditional logic here for the whatever the budget question, if it is 10,000 or under 10,000, printed on this spreadsheet?
Well, that's up here exporting for a spreadsheet.
Yeah.
So the whole point is that typically you want your systems to flow together, and like your Mailchimp would be like an automated email list, which means that once they get dropped into a feed inside a specific list or segment inside Mailchimp, you want them to automatically get a specific email because they are planning to spend a lot of money or something of that nature. The whole idea is to automate as many of your workflow systems as possible.
I didn't think about the next step. That would solve that, but not the next
Yeah, that's why I was like saying the Zapier integration with spreadsheets is so nice, because the minute they come in, you automatically just add that entry to that spreadsheet. And then sometimes, because I have a lot of integrations I use. We do multiple feeds. So I'll send a GitHub ticket, I'll send a Trello card creation, and I'll send an email, and I'll do a help scout.
So going into that a little further, once we're back here in the forms list, and you can get to this from the toolbar as well, if we're going to go into settings here and go into confirmations. So a confirmation is what the user sees on the front end when they're filling out the form, and you are required to have at least one confirmation per form. So we have the default confirmation here that says, thanks for contacting us, we'll get in touch with you shortly. This, instead of being just like basic text that goes in place of the form, you can select it being a different page on your WordPress site that it can redirect to, or you can put in a direct URL for what the form should redirect to after submission. So we have this basic text here, thanks for contacting us, we will get in touch with you shortly. And what we're going to do is I'm going to go back to confirmations here, and I'm going to add a new confirmation. We'll set this confirmation name to be under budget. And we'll set the text to be thanks for contacting us. Unfortunately, your selected budget is under what we require to work on projects. Best of luck in your search.
That shouldn't have been an option to begin with.
That's why you did the form like I did, where you don't let people get past that point.
So then we'll go ahead and add like conditional logic down here to use this confirmation if what your budget is the under 10,000 option. So we'll save that confirmation. And I'm just going to resubmit that form because I selected under 10,000. And you'll see that that's what the confirmation message has changed to. So then another item here is notifications. So this is the emails that go out automatically when a form is submitted. We create one for you, an admin notification by default. You do not have to have any notifications on a form. And we'll just go in here and edit it. By default, it's set to send to whatever the admin email address is on the WordPress site. You can change, you can define that to have like a specific address for it to go to. You can select an email field on the form, so you can have, like, if you wanted to send like a thank you message directly to the person that just filled out that contact form, you could go ahead and select their email address or the email field. You can also configure routing. So this is like another form of conditional logic, where send to this email address if they selected like what your budget is under 10,000, 10,000, etc. You can set the from name and from email address for the email, the reply to address and the BCC addresses, and then the subject and the messages, or in the message itself. You can, again, enable conditional logic here to control whether or not that notification gets sent out. And if you have a file upload field on your form, there will be an additional setting here that allows you to automatically have any files uploaded during that form submission. They'll automatically be added as attachments to that email. So that's just a basic, yes.
Okay, so just let's get this. So let's say I've got a free widget for you. It's a digital document. You fill out this form for me, and you send you off to a thank you page, and here's the link. You can download that document. Right?
Yeah.
Okay.
And you could put that link on the thank you page, or you could put it in the email and set it based on like what they select. So that's just like a simple contact form. But sometimes your forms get more complex than that. They need to be multiple pages. So what we can do is we have Gravity Forms supports multiple page forms. And all it requires is just taking under the standard fields that there's this page field. And we'll just go ahead and drag that into the form. So automatically anything between these paging fields will be what's on a page. So we'll go ahead and we'll drag this page breakdown. We'll go ahead and have like the basic like name, email, and phone be on the first page. And then the other questions be on the second page. And you can go ahead and like we could set it so that way the what are you contacting us about and the budget questions are a page. And then we can just take another page field, just click and drag, and we can insert it in here between these two fields, and it will go ahead and create another page. We'll go ahead and update that. We'll look at the form. And as you can see, like we have those first three fields here, you'll have a progress bar at the top of how far into the form you are. And you can just continue stepping through the form, just like in the same form as before, but we just have it broken up under multiple pages.
How do you get that bar to show up? Just by doing paging?
Yeah, by default, the bar will show up. So if we go into the first, like at the very top of the form will be this paging field you'll see here, and we'll open it up just like we did with the other fields. You can choose what kind of progress indicator you want at the top here. It can be a progress bar. You can have like a simple steps, so we'll show like 1, 2, and you can have page names for those steps. Or you could just like completely disable the progress indicator. And then same as with the field, you can set a CSS class name for that top bar. I'm going to go ahead and get rid of these pages for a moment.
I use sections, but I've never used pages.
So what you can do is we also have what's called a section field. So we can go ahead and we'll add 2 sections in here. We'll name this first one contact information. And we'll just call this one, what are you contacting us about? And when you view the form, they'll just appear as simple headings on the form. But what's great with these sections is what we'll do here just to show is I will add a radio button field in here. And I'm going to say show contact information. Yes, no. So everything between section fields is a section. So everything between this contact information section field and this what are you contacting us about section field, those fields in there are all one section. And we can apply conditional logic to the sections. So we have the show contact information field here. And we're going to go ahead and we're going to go down to this contact information section here. And we're going to go in and enable conditional logic. And we're going to say show this section if that show contact information radio button is selected to yes. And now what that'll do is when we go and view the form, that contact information section is not visible. Once we go ahead and click yes, it'll go ahead and show all the fields beneath that contact information section break. So what that allows you to do is, like, say you have in a section you have 12, 13 forms or 12 and 13 fields, and their visibility is controlled by conditional logic. Instead of having to set those separate rules on each individual field for that section, you can just set it on the section break and it will show and hide with one easy step. Am I losing anyone so far?
No.
A good example of that one is like client intake forms. If you're on a contact form and you're a new client, there may be like a whole bunch of questions you want to ask if the client's a new client, and you only want to show it if they are a new client. So if they check the box that says I'm a new client, then you show that section.
Or even on forms where like all the fields are required, like I have a support form for plugins I sell. There's a lot of questions that are asked to get all the information, but to ensure they all get filled out, I only show about 3 to start off with, and once they've filled out all 3, then it will show additional ones. So it's slowly stepping them through the form.
Is the psychology, don't show them all the millions of questions you're going to be asking them? Just like spoon feed them a little bit and spoon feed them a little bit.
So you want to give them a little bit here and there, so that way they don't like pull up the page and go, oh my god, my scroll bar is really tiny.
I'm just going to call them.
Yeah, I'll just call them. And then you'll call them and they'll be like, why aren't they answering the phone?
Yeah, because we have a form.
Yeah, because we have a form.
Can you add images, like JPEGs or images into, like, show me, you got model A or model B, choose which one if you wanted 2 different choices?
So for choices, there is a third-party Gravity Forms plugin out there called JetSloth, or a company called JetSloth, and they have a plugin. Let me see if I can pull it up here. They are based out of Australia, so their site is kind of slow.
Are the community add-ons actually part of the add-on package?
The add-on, only the official add-ons that we provide will display on the add-ons tab in Gravity Forms. Yes.
Okay, gotcha.
So they have this, there's a third-party add-on called Gravity Forms Image Choices, and it will take like radio button fields, checkbox fields, and you can add images for each field. And so you can, like this right here that they're showing at the top, this is a Gravity Form. And it's just a basic radio button field that they have their image choices that they've set images on, and then they've put some CSS on it to make it look pretty. But you can do that with like product selection and all that kind of stuff to avoid having to like write custom HTML to go in there. Anything else while we're at like the basic stuff?
I have a question.
Yeah.
On your notifications, my company makes websites for clients.
Yes.
And when we build a form like this, it goes on their website, and then their clients fill out the form and respond. When they get those emails, it looks like they're coming from us instead of from their client.
Yeah.
How do I change that?
So just right here, like in the from name and the from email, you would just set like who you want that the name of the client,
But
and then the email.
I mean, you don't know who the client is. It's somebody. You're trying to gather information from somebody, and you don't know who it is that you're hitting. So when they fill it out the form, then it shows up. So how do I get it so it's going to pull from the form to show it's coming from their email?
So what you can do is Gravity Forms. If you've ever used Mailchimp, they have a similar feature called merge tags, and merge tags will allow you to insert data from the form submissions. Usually it's used like throughout like notification settings like this, when you're setting like the notification email, the confirmation, and like in a lot of the add-ons we have. And normally where you can use merge tags, there's this little drop-down icon next to it. I'll try to make it a little bigger here. And we're in the from email for the notification. We'll go ahead and click the merge tag drop-down, and we'll just go ahead and put in, there's the email field. We'll click that, and it will insert the merge tag for the email field, and that will automatically be replaced with whatever value was inserted into that field.
Okay, so I have hard typed that in, and it still was coming across as our company. So if I use the drop down, that would work better.
Are you using a merge tag?
I didn't use the merge.
Yeah, you would want to use the merge tag because it will sort the value whatever they type in from the form and just insert it directly in place.
Thank you.
Sammy?
Yeah, I was gonna ask, are most of the add-ons are paid? Are there any free ones?
There's a lot of free add-ons out there on the WordPress.org repository. A lot of the more premium, like feature-based ones out there are paid. And then we include some depending on what tier of license you get. All the tiers of licenses come with add-ons. It just depends on which license tier you pay for, which add-ons you get with it.
Okay. So most of the features that you just went through are in the cheapest options?
Everything I've showed here so far is built into Gravity Forms. Doesn't matter which tier you get, none of these are add-ons yet. Yeah.
Will you show us how to add an upload file? I got two parts to this question.
Okay.
How to upload a file, and can you validate the file to specify only certain types, like image files?
So we'll go ahead and what are you contacting us about? We're gonna go to the advanced fields section here. We will grab our file upload field, and we'll go ahead and we'll just put it below message. Come on. There we go. So that's added a file upload field to the bottom of our form. We'll go ahead and name this resume as if they are signing up for a job application. And then there's the allowed file extensions field setting here for file upload fields. And all you have to do is type in, if you just want images, just type in common file extensions for images like JPEG, PNG files, GIF files, maybe bitmap still for some reason, PDFs. Maybe for some reason their JPEG file has an E in the extension for some reason, so we'll go ahead and add that as well. And it's that simple. And then all you have to do is we'll go ahead and click update. We'll preview the form. And then right there at the bottom is that resume field where they can just go ahead and choose their file. And it will show the accepted file types right next to it. And you can also go in and you can enable multiple files to be uploaded. You just click enable multi-file upload. And when you view it on the form, it'll show it. They can either click the button or they can just drop files in. And you can limit how many files they can upload to that field. And you can also set the maximum file size they can upload for that field. Yes?
Can you show me Captcha?
The Captcha. I cannot because I don't have keys set up for that. So what you would do to add the Captcha field to your form, you would go, first you would need to go under the Forms menu, you go to Settings, which is where all your main plugin settings for Gravity Forms will be. And any of the add-ons, there will be a tab for it there where you can configure the main settings for that add-on. And at the bottom of the general settings, there's the reCAPTCHA settings. So in here, you would go ahead and put in your site key and your secret key that you would get from Google. And then you would just go back to your form. And under advanced fields, there's a CAPTCHA field. Just go ahead and add that field to the form. And because I haven't set it up, it's telling me how to set up the basic Captcha settings. But then once you've done that, it'll be right there on the form.
I use the Candy Spam Honeypot.
Yes.
And I never get anything. I never get any spam email at all.
So we'll go ahead and just go under the basic form settings here. You can change the title and description of the form. The description will display right beneath the form title if you decide to set one. The overall for the form, the label placement, description placement, and the sub-label placement, I showed those before in the field settings. This is universal for the whole form. You can set a CSS class name for the form. And then for the submit button, you can choose if it's a text or an image, and then you can put in, if it's an image, you can put in the URL for the image there. You can also enable conditional logic on the submit button. So you can hide the submit button under certain criteria. You can, under restrictions, you can limit the amount of form submissions for the form. You can set when the form will accept submissions from a start to an end date, and the message that appears when they can no longer submit anything. You can require the user to be logged in to be able to fill out the form. And you can enable the anti-spam honeypot, which uses, it doesn't even use a Kismet. It just has like a hidden field injected into the form. That way, like, bots will just automatically fill it out because it looks like a normal field, and that will reject and mark it as spam. There's also this save and continue feature. So when you enable save and continue, and you can set the text for the save and continue feature, when you go to view the form, there will be a link at the bottom that says save and continue later. And when the user clicks that link, they will be given a link to come back to the current page with a token that when they click this link, whatever they were currently filling out on the form will automatically be populated in. So they can just save what they were filling out and continue it later. And they can also put in their email address to get a link to that right in their email. Yes.
I have a question about Captcha.
Okay.
The purpose of Captcha is to keep machines from submitting.
Hopefully, yes.
Hopefully. But does that ever happen to machines if you have a form on the internet without a Captcha?
Without a Captcha, absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
Why do they do that?
Because they're evil. I mean, there's no other word for it. I have a client who's a local Tampa psychotherapist, and he was getting 7 submissions a day from India and China, and they were just spamming loading daylights out of his form on the website for no reason whatsoever, but they were clever enough to use different names and email addresses that didn't look like anything. They didn't look like spam, only the message was spam. And it was ridiculous. He said, what am I going to do? This is what I keep doing. It was Caldera Forms.
Okay.
And I switched to a Gravity Forms. It was gone immediately.
Yeah.
And then also people do it too, sometimes to force people to say, oh, we noticed that you're getting spammed by such and such and such.
Yeah.
Come and work with us.
Sales strategy.
Yeah.
Fix your spam.
Yeah.
Well, that's like the one that says, you know, we've detected a virus on your computer, you need to call us to take it off. But don't evil people have better things to do?
Nope.
Nope.
Really don't.
They got the bots
Or
slowing.
they have no imagination.
Well, no, they have bots slowing, so it's just something running in the background.
So talking similar to the save and continue feature, there's also, it's available in our Elite package. It's a separate add-on. It's called our Partial Entries add-on. I've went ahead and installed the add-on. And when you have partial entries installed, when you are in the settings area of a form, there will be a new tab added called Partial Entries. So what you can do is you enable this on a form-by-form basis. Go ahead and enable it for this form. Go ahead and update the settings. So when we'll start out and we'll fill out the form just a little bit. And what this does in the background, I believe it's either every 45 seconds or 60 seconds. I'm kind of stalling a bit so we get to that time, so it kicks in. It will use the WordPress's Heartbeat API to take whatever the user has filled out in the form so far and save that partial entry in the back end of your website. And this is great to see, like, when people are filling out the form, if they haven't finished, you can use it for follow-up to, like, contact them to see, like, why they didn't fill out the form, and to just use, like, as basics or general statistics of, like, hey, like, a bunch of people aren't completely finishing the form. Where are they stalling out? Because maybe we just need to edit our form a bit to make it so people are actually filling it out. So that should have been enough time to stall that I can go over here into our entries for this form. Yeah, we'll see here this one I was just working on. It's up here at the top. You can see there's a progress item that shows we filled out about half of it. And if we go ahead here and view it, you can see what I filled out so far. So that takes, let's see. Okay. So that takes care of, like, we've built out our basic contact form and we've previewed it. But now we need to actually get it onto our site. So I'm just going to go in here and create a new contact page. For the moment, I'm using the classic editor. And right on top of the editor, there's this add form button. And when you click it, it brings up this modal. You can select which form you would like to embed on the page, whether or not you want to display the form title, display the form description, and enable Ajax so it can just do submissions right there without refreshing the page. We'll go ahead and insert the form. It'll put in the short code to embed the form. We'll go ahead and publish the page. View the page. And there we go. We got the form that we've created embedded on our site. And since it's using Ajax, if I just go ahead and type the first last name, submit the form, we've seen right there in place without the page refreshing, it's gone ahead and submitted the form and displayed us with the confirmation message. If you don't have the classic editor enabled and you're using Gutenberg, you can find it on our site. Let me see. We have a Gutenberg add-on, which we have it separately right now as an add-on. In the future, once we are sure everything is perfectly ironed out with it, there's no issues, it will be merged into Gravity Forms itself, so you won't need a separate plugin. But I'm going to go ahead here, I'm going to get rid of this current contact form page, I'm going to add a new page. Here we go with the lovely new WordPress 5.0 editor. Go ahead and set the title for the page. And then we'll go ahead here to add a new block. And if you just go ahead and start searching, there's a Gravity Forms block. Go ahead and click that. And I'm going to select the contact form here. And because this form has conditional logic in the fields, in one of the fields, it will not display a preview of the form here. But if you look over here on the right, you'll see the form. You can toggle the form title and the form description settings. We'll go ahead and publish that. And but I'm going to go ahead here and edit this form. I believe it's this field that has conditional logic. We'll go ahead and turn that off. Come back here to edit this page. I'll go ahead and delete this block so you can see what the initial experience is like. So we'll go ahead and add a new Gravity Forms block. We'll select that contact form. And because it doesn't have conditional logic on it, you'll see a preview of the form directly in line on the page. And then you can go ahead here, if we toggle these settings of form title, it'll have the form title disappear, same with the form description. Under the advanced tab here, you can choose whether or not you want this preview to even appear at all. You can toggle on and off if the form is going to be embedded with Ajax. And then we also have built in for the block itself, where you're embedding this form, conditional logic. So you can have this form appear or not based on if the user is logged in, logged out, or based on their role, or based on the date, if it's before or if it's after a certain date and time. I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, Jim, that kind of covers all the basics?
Yeah, that covers the basics.
Of Gravity Forms?
You did the Mailchimp one, right?
We haven't even touched that yet.
Okay, yeah, no, that covers all the basics.
Yeah. Anybody have any questions so far? Anything? Maybe I should go, yeah.
Okay, so how much data can you actually store on the back end on your website using this form? So if I have lots and lots of people putting stuff in there, see, I have no idea, that's why I'm asking.
As much as your server will allow.
Okay, so whatever they'll let me use.
Yeah,
okay.
There's no regardless of which license type you get, it will include Gravity Forms itself, which is pretty much everything I've showed you here except for the partial entries part. That's in our Elite license. and you are not limited on how many forms you can create or how many submissions those forms you can. It's unlimited forms, unlimited submissions. It's like as much as your server will allow.
Okay, so all of these events sort of like, they live like a page in your website, right?
In a sense, yeah, they're all stored in the database for your website. The only thing, and you can, on your forms, you can have an unlimited amount of fields. We suggest you don't. Probably like cap it like maybe around 100 fields. If you have more than that, like, of course you'll have like, you'll run into issues with people filling them out just because you're asking so many things. But also, like, if you have 100 fields on your form and you start applying like all this crazy conditional logic, all this JavaScript is running where like when you go to like select one field, it just takes forever to the others to appear because it's having to go through like all these different conditional logic rules. Yeah.
Can you adjust a line with the forms? Like if you want first, middle, initial, last name, you can put all three on one line and shorten down it?
So we have these things. I'm going to go into, we have a lot of documentation. On our documentation site, it's docs.gravityforms.com. If you go on our site and just go to support up in the menu and just click browse documentation, it will take you there. There's over 1,700 articles on there. So we should have, if you have a question, we likely have it covered. What we have are called Css Ready Classes built in. So for something like that, like maybe like a horizontal style form, we have this GF Simple Horizontal CSS Ready class, where if I go to the form settings here and add the GF Simple Horizontal class on the whole form, it will show the whole, it'll show the whole form horizontal. But then there's also different CSS classes that we have built in that you can use that will like split the columns into like, you can have 2 columns, 3 columns, 4 columns. In the future, in a future major update, you will be able to drag and drop those fields in the columns and not have to worry about the classes. And say you don't want to use Gravity Forms as included CSS at all. Maybe it's getting in the way of your theme or something like that. Under the general settings here, you can just go and set output CSS to no. And when you go and view your contact form, it's just going to use the styles that are available with your theme. Any other questions? Yeah.
You got me worried about spamming responses
Okay.
on forms because I just am deploying a WordPress form on a WordPress site.
Okay. And to be fair, Jim's the one that got you worried. He's talking about everything's evil and the robots and.
Well, you know, I don't know if I can wait that long. So
once they find you, it's like, you know.
Is there any other Captcha sort of function you could use on a WordPress site?
You may not need it, honestly.
Yeah.
I'm not kidding. I did their anti-spam honeypot. Just check that one box.
Yeah, if you go into settings here, yeah.
I didn't have to worry about it at all.
Well, I used one of the, shame on me, I used one of the free.
Well, I can't help you there, dude.
Oh, I'm supposed to.
Yeah, have that option. I mean, I've used, we're not supposed to talk about other competitors here, but I've used the Jetpack feedback form and it works.
Which one?
The standard Jetpack feedback form
Okay.
with their anti-spam akismet thing built in. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
That's $9 a month, you can look at it.
But yeah,
Make it payable to me.
but at the bottom of the form settings, if you just check that enable anti-spam honeypot.
How do these work on devices? Can you go from the white screen on your 22-inch monitor down to the 8-inch tablet, down to your 5-inch cell phone?
So a lot of that, like the built-in Gravity Form styles, will help with like the responsiveness. So like I've gone ahead and dragged it down, and like the 2 named fields have condensed to be above each other. But a lot of that is just based on the CSS for the theme you're using and how that responds to responsive sites in the different tablets.
And a column in your theme, and your theme doesn't actually doing anything with that content block, then the form will be responsive.
Yeah.
But the content container.
Anything else? Yeah.
Yeah, we're building a membership site. So you could use these forms to have people join, right?
So we have under the Elite Lights, and this is, I'm just going to cover here, like when you start talking membership, there's like a lot of moving parts. But if you want to, like, we can just go ahead. It comes with our Elite license. We have a user registration add-on. I'll just go ahead and create a register user form. And I'll put in like the required stuff, which is they need a username, they need an email, and they need a password. So I just clicked and added like those three. They're all advanced fields. Went ahead and added those to the form. And since I have the user registration add-on enabled, I'll just go ahead here under settings and click user registration. I will add a new user registration feed. And for this feed, I'm going to go ahead and create a user. And then you'll go ahead here and map the different settings. So for the username, I'm going to use the username field. For the email field, the password field. You need to select a role for the user. I'm going to go ahead and set it to subscriber. And you can also add additional user meta based on like other fields you might have on the form. You can have the WordPress send the password to the user when they submit it. You can require user activation. That can be either the user is sent a link that they have to confirm, or you as a site administrator have to manually approve that user before they are created on the site. And then of course, just like everything else, there is conditional logic on this, so only create this user if they filled out certain conditions. But I'll go ahead and save this feed. I'll preview the form, and I'll just put like simple like John Doe, john@doe.com, super secure password of 12345678910. Submit the form. And then if we go into our users here in the back end, you'll see that new user has been created with that subscriber role. And you can also create a similar form like that to update the user. So you could have, if you have like a membership site, you could have like an update profile page, and you could build out a form that allows them to like update their password, update like other information related to them, like their address, their phone number, stuff like that. And you would just go in a similar way.
So how is that better than just using the WordPress system?
This uses the WordPress user system, but it's giving you a simple front end to actually like go ahead and register those users and stuff like that. And we also, let me see, I need to use the Classic editor here. So also built in with the user registration add-on, I'll go ahead and just create a login page here. And this is listed in the documentation, but if I just add in a Gravity form shortcode and I set the action to login, and I go to the page, well, since I'm already logged in, it's saying that you're already logged in, but if I go to private browser, it'll go ahead and insert a login form for you. And you don't even have to like go in and create a login form, it just automatically injects it for you. And there's also like, if you look into the documentation, it's available as a widget as well, and you can control like where like the forgot password link, the register link goes to. You can have, when the user's logged in, you can change this message, you can have links appear once they're logged in, stuff like that.
Has anyone used this for creating a testing? You know, submitting a test to a classroom of people.
Yeah. Because we also have like the quiz and survey add-on, so you could build out a test like using the quiz add-on, and like you can set like how different, like what the correct answers are for different questions, how they're weighted, and then you can go to a results page, see how overall people have performed. And that's just like scratching the surface of it.
Wow, that'd be powerful.
Yeah.
Okay, so how do we direct them once they log in? Is there some place to direct them? Like, let's say I have an LMS, I've got people learning stuff over here, I've got digital downloads over here, and that's a whole different group of people. I've got a group of people that do them all.
Yeah.
Okay, so how do I direct them to either get the dashboard that's got the digital download, the LMS, or all of them?
With this login form, what you can do is like for something more complex like that, we have a filter that will allow you with code to set the login URL or the login redirect URL. Okay. So you would do based on like you would have that user object in WordPress, and you could say like depending on like what information is attached to that user, go to this page or that page. Anything else that I haven't like touched on yet? So what we can do, so like there's a a bunch of add-ons. A lot of our add-ons are for integrations with third-party services. One I'll show off is like a common one, which is Mailchimp. I've went ahead and installed the Mailchimp add-on and activated it. I will go here under the general Gravity Form settings and go to the Mailchimp tab and go ahead and I went ahead and put in my Mailchimp API key. And when you do these types of configurations, when you hit update settings, it will show either a check mark or an X next to the API settings field based on whether or not that API key actually works.
Travis,
Yes.
sorry, before you go any further, as far as the form goes, are you limited as to, say for instance, you get the base level package, are you limited to how many forms you can have?
Unlimited forms. Unlimited form submissions regardless of what package.
Okay.
So we'll go ahead and, so with MailChimp, it's email marketing, mailing list software. So I'll just go ahead and create a new mailing list form here. And we'll just ask for like the two basics, which is what's your name and what's your email address. And with GDPR, you would want to put a checkbox on the form saying I consent to signing up for the newsletter.
Can you show that? Oh.
Yes. Oh, well, yeah. This is the new consent field we have added. So when you add in the consent file or field, by default, it's just like I agree to the privacy policy on the site with a checkbox. And then in the description, you can add the privacy policy here. This is the privacy. You could with HTML. Yeah. And when you yes.
I don't remember the name of my privacy policy servicer, but it changes as laws change. So it's basically an HTML code I have in, so when they open it up, it'll open up the new page of whatever's going on.
Yeah. Yeah, you could just insert a link to that page, and have it pop up. And then if we go ahead and look at that form, this is a like scrollable text box that will show that privacy policy, and you would have to click to agree. I'll just go ahead and fill out this form real quick. So then when we go into the entries for this one, it will show that they consented and the privacy policy that they agreed to. So if we were to go in here and change this privacy policy to like this is the new privacy policy, and we go back to the entries here, we're still seeing which one they agreed to. So it's not like it changes based on, or it's not like it shows based on what the current state of the form is. So what we'll go ahead and do here, yeah?
So a consent can be anything.
Yeah.
Right? So if I say, okay, you're going to consent to get up at 5 o'clock in the morning and run around the block. Right?
Yeah.
Check it off. Okay, well, so I just wanted to make sure.
Or like the common version of that a lot of people do is like terms of service. Before like it was like consenting for privacy. So that would be like a similar use case there.
Okay.
So we'll go ahead, we're under the form settings here. We're going to go to the Mailchimp tab and create a new Mailchimp feed. We'll select a Mailchimp mailing list we want to use for this feed. I'll go ahead and select Tampa Bay WordPress. Go ahead and map the fields. If the name of the field matches, we'll go ahead and automatically map it for you. So because it detected like the first and the last name ones, those were automatically mapped, and then we'll add the email one here. You can set other options as well for Mailchimp, like double opt-in, which will require them to click a link in their email for them to be added to the list. You can mark the subscriber as VIP. You can add tags to that Mailchimp contact. You can add a note to them. And of course, you can use conditional logic. So we'll go ahead and enable condition, and we will only add them to the list if consent is checked. We'll update the settings. And I will come back to this form. Set the name to Gravity Forms Workshop. Set it workshop. I'm actually going to go back here real quick and turn off double opt-in. And I will agree to the privacy policy, hit submit. And now with that form submission, it's gone ahead and done the general other stuff that we have set up of displaying the confirmation, sending out that basic email notification. But then if we go into Mailchimp here, and I'll pull up my Tampa Bay WordPress list, it is likely because, let me see, I will go on my phone here. I should have an email asking me to confirm. And I do not. This is going great. So let's see if we go back here. So this actually shows off a great feature. And it's something that will likely, if you need support like this, will come into play. If we go into settings here, there is a logging option. So we'll go ahead and enable logging. And then there's a logging tab here, which will allow you to enable logging for Gravity Forms itself and all the add-ons we have. So what we do is like when like a form is submitted like this, we'll go ahead and resubmit that form. We have the Mailchimp add-on logging everything that happens along the way while it's handling the form submission. So if we go ahead and view the Mailchimp log, we'll see that it already went through. I'm already, we're checking to see if I'm already on the list. I was found on the list. I am subscribed. And that we're going to go ahead and update that contact in Mailchimp. And then it shows that the subscriber was successfully updated and that the tags were successfully updated. Let's see, if we refresh this, it should show. Yeah, there it is. Okay, it's because it was on a slight delay. So because we went ahead and set up that feed, I'm automatically added in here into this Tampa Bay WordPress Mailchimp list.
Ask another question.
Yes.
What's the plus workshop? That little directive you added to your email like that, what does that do?
That's Gmail.
Okay. But how does it work in Gmail? I guess that's
So you can use that plus after that. You can like use it to set filters and stuff.
Oh, okay.
But like what I'll do is like if I'm testing, I'll just do Travis plus testing 1 plus testing 2. Like if I need unique email addresses.
Okay.
Because it all still goes to your main Travis at Rocketgenius inbox.
But it treats it as a quick email address.
Yes.
Awesome. Okay, thank you.
Great, really.
Yeah.
Oh, love that. I'm gonna have to change those.
Yeah. Don't go to spam all the time. When they try to be on their spam list because somebody downloaded all of their contacts.
So showing that logging feature, we do not recommend like leaving logging enabled for longer than you needed to, especially since sometimes it has like very sensitive information, like maybe like the token used for Stripe to charge a credit card or credentials to log into an API. And if you just like click this message here, when logging is enabled, it will be displayed on every site or every page of the WordPress admin to remind you, hey, please turn it off if you're not using it anymore. And it's just a simple like one click, it disables it with Ajax. But we also have this handy under the forms menu here, the system status page, which will show you everything about your current WordPress environment, including links to logs you might have, and like the current database version. And if you're working with support, we have this handy little copy system report button here that will copy all this and just paste it in. Yes?
Did you have to do anything in WordPress to enable email, or was it that way out of the box?
That way out of the box. If you don't receive email when a form is submitted for a notification you have set up, that is likely because of your hosting environment and not Gravity Forms itself. We have a whole, if you go onto our documentation site and search for troubleshooting notifications, there's tons of like common steps that we see with customers that you can go through. And one thing you might want to do is like use a third-party service like Postmark, Mailgun, SendGrid. Those are services that just handle sending emails. And we have, comes with all the licenses, we have add-ons that integrate with those three, where when you are setting up a notification and you have one of those, like say you have Postmark installed, when you're on the notifications page, there's like setting up a notification, there's a button that says like click here and it'll just like use Postmark instead of WordPress to send the email.
What were those three? Mailgun?
SendGrid and Postmark are the ones we support currently. Any other questions? Yeah.
Collecting your data.
Mm-hmm.
Let's say you're doing a survey and you get the opportunity to say, okay, if you want to contact me or if you want me to contact you, I need your data, your information.
Yeah.
Name and phone number, email address. But if you want to do this privately, no PII is required.
Mm-hmm.
How will it still know that this is an independent query to go into the database so I can see it separately?
You don't have you don't have to put an email address on a form. That's completely optional. Like every single form submission that is put in will just appear in your entries.
Okay, it'll just show up.
Yeah.
Okay.
regardless of what fields are on there. Yeah. Because they're all hosted in your database as completely separate objects. Anything else? Kind of getting toward the end here. If you want to wrap up a little early.
Thank you very much.
We can look at Stripe.
Stripe. Yeah, we could set up we can set a payment form up real quick.
Try to like it, yeah.
Sorry.
It's all good. We'll just set up a simple payment form. We will add a product, just a basic product. We will set a price of $5. And then we will add a credit card field, or we'll add a total field so you can see what the total is. And we will add a credit card field, which is required to use like Stripe in this instance. And there are a couple other pricing fields available, like you can set options for a product. You can have a shipping field, a quantity field for multiple products. But we're just going to keep it basic with this one. So we have that basic payment form set up. We will go under settings here and select Stripe. I'm going to pop back over here to the general Gravity Forms settings real quick. Go to the Stripe tab. I've already put in my Stripe API information. We'll go ahead here and create a Stripe feed for this form. There's two types of transaction that you can do with Gravity Forms, like with any of our payment gateway add-ons, which include Authorize.net, ToCheckout, PayPal, and Stripe are the ones we offer. So we'll go ahead and we're going to make this, instead of you can do subscription or products and services, we're going to do a product. We're going to go ahead and set what the payment amount is. For this, we're going to use the form total. And then you can select or create any other additional metadata you might want to send to Stripe for this transaction. You can select whether or not to send the Stripe receipt. If you had receipts set up in Stripe, they'll appear here in the drop-down that you can select from. And then, of course, as usual, conditional logic to choose whether or not the payment should be processed based on what they filled out in the form. Go ahead and save that. We will preview the form. For this product, we'll say we want to buy 5 of them. As soon as we type in 5 and pop out, it'll go ahead and update the total for us. And then if I remember right, the testing card number for Stripe is 4242, like that. We'll go ahead and select, put in a cardholder name, and submit. So if we go back in here to the entries for this payment form and we view it, you'll see here we have the credit card information we do not store. As long as if you do not have a payment gateway hooked up to the form, it will store your credit card information on your database. If you do have a payment gateway hooked up, it will only store like the last 4 for display purposes. You'll have a nice little table view of the order that was created with the entry. And then for Stripe, there's a note that is added saying the payment has been completed with the amount that was charged and the transaction ID in Stripe. And then you'll have over here in a little meta box on the right the payment details, that the status is paid, the date the transaction happened, the transaction ID, and the amount. If the transaction didn't go through, you would see an error note here. It would be in red, and it would say why it didn't go through. And you'll see that a lot with a lot of the add-ons. Like if on that Mailchimp form, if the submission didn't go through to Mailchimp correctly, you wouldn't need to go into the logs to see it. If you just went into the entry and looked at the notes, there would be an error note that said why it failed and why it didn't go into Mailchimp.
Is it paid plugin, this Stripe?
Stripe is with our Elite license, yes.
Oh.
Okay, so if it fails to go through, does the purchaser also get that error note to know that it did not go through?
It depends on the error. If it's something that is wrong with their credit card, like let's all go back here. Oh, wrong form. I think it's this one. Yeah. So I will that's an invalid card number that I just put in. So if I go ahead and submit this form, there it will error out and it will say the card number is incorrect. So if it has something related to do with that transaction in that sense, it will prevent the user from going through. Like if their card is declined, the card is incorrect, it'll appear there. But if it's something like a little more complex than that, like maybe you set up the metadata here for Stripe, like that'll go on that transaction, and there's like something like it's invalid for some reason, that would be something that the user wouldn't see it on the front end. And you can also, with these payment gateway add-ons, you can put in both live and testing keys. So you can have like one form and you can have Stripe set to test mode, and it will just do everything through the Stripe sandbox, so you're not actually getting your card charged. And then all you have to do is flip the switch to live and it will start charging like normal. Anything else?
Where do you switch it to live?
So when you go into the plugin settings here for Stripe, there's room for your test and live keys, and then just a simple switch for live and test. And depending on which one you have enabled, that's the keys it will use.
Okay.
Yeah. And that's just like scratching the surface. That covers like a lot of the basic features in Gravity Forms itself. But we also have like all these add-ons that are available. All these, like in the basic ones, there's like Active Campaign, Aweber, Campaign Monitor, Clever Reach, Emma, Get Response, iContact, MadMimi, Mailchimp. Those are all email marketing add-ons. Then there are those three I talked about before: Mail, Gun, Postmark, and SendGrid. If you go up to our middle license, you get all those that are in the basic license. And then there's also additional ones like all our CRM add-ons, like Agile CRM, High-Rise. There's the Dropbox one I mentioned before. There's a Slack add-on, so when a form is submitted, you can have a message sent to your Slack channel. You can use Trello add-on to have a card added if you're in your Trello board. Help Scout to have it added to your help desk. Zapier, if you want to integrate with a third-party service that we don't have an add-on for. And then in our Elite license, which is our top-tier license, there's all the payment gateway ones I mentioned before, like Stripe and PayPal. And that's where all our feature add-ons live, like the advanced post-creation, the partial entries ones I showed earlier. You can do coupons for your payment forms. You can add a signature to your form, user registration, and chain selects, like if you want to do say like you were doing like a form like related to like a car, you could do chain selects of like the year, the make, the model, that style. That's about all I got, unless anybody else has any questions.
Thank you.
Woo!
You've just watched a recorded presentation from our WordPress St. Petersburg Meetup. We meet twice a month on the first and third Tuesdays in downtown St. Pete at the Suncoast Developers Guild. If you've enjoyed this presentation and found it useful, please give it a thumbs up on YouTube and be sure to subscribe to our channel and click the notification bell to be notified when new videos are added. You can find out more about WordPress St. Petersburg at our website at tampabaywp.org and at our Meetup site at meetup.com/WordPress St. Petersburg. Thanks.